everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. The ARC of California is thrilled to offer Caring Futures, a proven resource program dedicated to supporting caregivers and family members of adults with disabilities. Understanding the unique challenges faced by family caregivers as they age, Caring Futures offers critical planning assistance, resources, and a supportive community. Caring Conversations is just one part of Caring Futures program here at the ARC of California. We will share more about our other offerings by Caring Futures at the end of today's conversation, so please stay tuned. As you see, we have ASL interpretation for our discussion today. You can turn on the closed captioning by clicking the button in the bar below. At the end of today's conversation, there will be a question and answer session. At that time, we'll invite you to raise your hand or type your question in the Q&A to ask our guests directly. Hello, everyone. In case you haven't met me before in a previous Caring Conversation, my name is Felisa Strickland. I am a sole parent caregiver for my daughter, Lily. Lily is 24 years old. She has a diagnosis of cerebral palsy, autism, epilepsy, and IDD, and she requires full-time care. We enjoy our challenging and fun life in Santa Barbara, California. Alongside full-time caregiver, I am a strong advocate for individuals with disabilities and their families. I serve as a board member for the ARC of California, as well as Alpha Resource Center of Santa Barbara. I also participate in many committees and enjoy getting involved in fundraisers and advocacy projects in our community. As a parent, Caring Futures instructor, and parent educator, I am thrilled to be here for this important conversation with you today and our special guest. Today's topic is advocacy in uncertain times, charting a path forward. And joining us for our conversation today is Pat Hornbecker. Pat is a dental hygienist by profession and a human civil rights advocate most of the rest of the time. She has 4 grown children, and Joseph, her oldest, at 42, has Angelman syndrome. He lives in his own 2-bedroom apartment in San Francisco with a live-in companion and supported living services 24/7. Pat has affiliated herself with the ARC at the local, state, and national levels for the last 40 years, working to create quality lives for all people with disabilities, especially IDD, through public policy development, advocacy efforts, education, and family support. Joseph was fully included in the San Francisco public schools and moved into his apartment on Fisherman's Wharf at age 20, where he continues to be fully included in his community. Pat came to the ARC many years ago looking to find answers to questions about her son's future. She found a community, mentors, and support. Pat found a home, an organization of like-minded to help her achieve a dream for her son and others willing to work with him. She has stayed all these years because the ARC continues to work toward their shared goals of inclusion, respect, dignity, and equality. Pat has served as president of the ARC of San Francisco, the ARC of California, and on the board of the directors of the ARC of the United States. Pat believes strongly that disability rights are human rights. So without further ado, please welcome Pat.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning, Pat. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
My
I
pleasure.
I happen to know you've been quite busy being an advocate these past few weeks, so this conversation is very timely. Um, so to get us started with our conversation, would you mind telling us a little bit about what you've been up to in the advocacy arena and what your sense is about how people are feeling right now with the possible changes in our community?
Well, let's see. 2 weeks ago, we had disco that the Arc of California, along with Easter Seals and UCP, sponsored in Sacramento, and we were up there for 2 days of learning and rallying and advocating with all of our legislators up in Sacramento, up close and personal. And that was really exciting. We had a huge group of people. I think we had over 600 people on our second day marching over to the swing space to go in and meet people. We had legislators coming through to endorse what we are doing and receive awards from us. There was just so many wonderful things. We've also had some fabulous advocates across the state that we highlighted who have done wonderful things in their communities. The tribal communities of California were highlighted as one of them. Our self advocates were highlighted through almost everything we did. That was just energizing and exhausting all at the same time. Uh, I came home and we were home for about 2.5 minutes. Saturday, April 5th was the national march for disabilities across the hands off march across the country. So Tim and I were downtown San Francisco with a bazillion other people saying hands off Medicaid, hands off Social Security. And that was a crowd of thousands as well as, and you saw that across the country. Then we came home, repacked that suitcase, and headed to DC, where we went to the Arc of the United States Disability Policy Seminar, and they were outstanding in their presentation on the facts and fears of Medicaid cuts, educational cuts, disability funding cuts, with a sprinkle of Social Security thrown in there for excitement in case there wasn't enough going on. And it was very energizing. There were so many people. We had a delegation from California that was over 40, people who
Wow.
I know, I didn't even know some of them, and I got to know all of them only because I'm so shy and retiring, I don't talk to anyone, but but they had such great stories to tell. It was fabulous. And that, along with the fact that we were a national organization and a national meeting, we had, almost 1,000 people. So that was great. We had a march and a rally, and on Wednesday, after 2 days of learning, we were on the Hill, going through all of the legislative buildings, meeting with all 54 of our legislators, 52 congressmen, and 2 senators.
Okay.
And I got on a plane and slept on the way home. It was exhausting, but it was exciting. It was exciting to feel I had a message. It was exciting to tell the stories, to learn the stories of everyone else. But to your question about what everyone else is feeling, I think there's fear. I think there's fear. I think everybody seems to be worried about what could potentially happen. However, this educational experience, both in Sacramento and in DC, told me that there's a timeline of when all of this is going to happen. And this is April. And we have time for it to evolve, for us to educate our legislators, for us to share our stories, for us to do our individual advocacy before any final decisions that we fear will actually happen. And I think that was reassuring to a lot of people. I think it also, for some of the fear to advocate, for fear of targeting yourself, making yourself a target, was taken away by some of the information that was shared in the timelines and how we can advocate. I mean, advocacy takes so many different forms. It does not have to be you with the bullhorn walking down the street. It does not have to be you pounding on somebody's door. It can be letters. It's our phone to action line. It is emails. It is just telling your story in the simplest way. And there's many ways of us doing that. So anyway, okay.
Thank you, Pat. No, that's, yeah, You kind of validated what I've been feeling that people are feeling too. Like there is a lot to be concerned about when it comes to what could happen, but we don't really know exactly what's going to happen. But as advocates and as parents that have been doing this for a while, we know that it is truly possible that something could happen and something could change. We're used to that part. But what we're also used to is being prepared. So I think that, like I said, this conversation is timely. You mentioned we have some time. So let's give people some ideas on how they can stay involved and get involved. You've been advocating for Joseph and people with disabilities for a long time. And I'm sure that you've seen, like we've just talked about, some worries and concerns. And over the years, you've probably seen different things happen with different administrations. So you've also seen great progress, right? Like we know that progress has been made in the last 50 years for sure. Um, Given what you've seen in the current climate, with so many different areas of concerns like Medicaid cuts and dismantling of the ADA, Social Security, and others, what would you suggest that self-advocates, parents, and others do to focus their efforts to make an impact?
Well, you have to get kind of a longer range perspective on everything, first of all. Historically, I mean, I didn't start with all this gray hair. At some point in time, Joseph was in an infant program when I started advocating. He is 44 years old now. And it is the moms ahead of me that mentored me, that told me I was ungrateful because I didn't realize that, they worked really hard and got the ADA and they got IDEA and they got these and this, and I was taking it for granted. I really wasn't taking it for granted, but I didn't really know what the fight was to get it. So I learned that. So doing some research on how we got where we are, knowing the difference between California and other states is very important, I have found, when you want to do any national or federal advocacy. But knowing the historical perspective that now it's your turn, because we have had these battles before and they were really, really tight. And whether it was because there were budgets and recessions and depressions or whatever, we have all gone through these waves, but we keep fighting and we keep coming back to the front. And I think that's what we need to remember, is we will come forward again to be victorious, because what's right is right. And in this country, with democracy in whatever state you want to call it now, it is, we represent everyone, and everyone has a right to their education and to their housing and to their Medicaid services and their Social Security. I deserve my Social Security. I worked very hard for it. It's all of us. We are all going to continue the battle to maintain what we have. And I think that's the focus is the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and I love what you said about the history, because that is one thing that got me, even, as a parent, of course, I was on a daily basis advocating for my child, whether it be at school or just in the community. But to become, more involved with advocacy, it was learning about the history that actually really energized me about wanting to be a part of that history. And so now what you're doing in this moment today is historic, right? It will be at some point considered historic, and part of the disability community's history. So getting involved and keeping that focus on where you want to get to is truly so important. So once you get organized and know what you're advocating for, who are the people that you want to connect with as an advocate? What questions would you ask them? And what's the best way to truly make a connection and get their attention? What would you say to that?
I think the first group of people you need to associate with are other moms and dads. Support groups, that's where I started. uh, because we started educating one another. We
Mhm.
started asking each other the stupid questions we thought nobody wanted to answer. And then we found the answers. We did our research. We figured out what we needed to know in order to move forward just through school back in the old days. So that would be the first group. The next group is who are your legislators? Do you know who they are? I mean, it's kind of a mini civics class, which apparently nobody teaches anymore. But if you just learn, who's your assembly member and who is your senator? What district are you in? I can't remember the numbers. I actually have it on a post-it on my computer right here. I know that's silly, but I can never remember what number because they're 19, 17, and 16. They are way too close. Why can't they be farther apart? But I have to know, who is in what district. And then what's the difference between state stuff and national stuff, federal stuff? Knowing that federal and national are the same thing. Um, where does Medicaid come from? We call it Medi-Cal in California. Know those kinds of things. These are things we educate ourselves on. Um, and then it's not horrible to actually meet these people. They have town halls. Go to a town hall to speak up and carry a sign, but go in and meet. Scott Wiener is my a senator. Uh, he's here in San Francisco. He's here all the time, and he's very much in favor of all of our issues. So when he speaks, I listen, and he often says something I want to hear. And if you go somewhere and they don't say something you like, just make a note of that, and we move on because that's an educational moment for you. But showing up at some of those fairs or town halls is important. Real locally, when my son was in school, we started with community advisory committees with the school district. I started there. I started with a support group. Then I moved up to inter-district self-bus, special education, local plan area stuff. And then I went beyond schools to adult stuff. I said, I want to know what the adult world looks like, even though Joseph's in fourth grade. It's going to take me a while to know what that is, and I got to fix it before he gets there. Those are the kinds of things that I anticipated doing, but I did that with a whole bunch of other moms. And so don't be alone. Hooking up with our Facebook page here on Caring Futures. Call Felisa, call me. I mean, these are the people that you really need to be in touch with. It really is the best way to start. It's on a person to person, mom to mom, family to family basis.
Thank you, Pat. And I'm gonna go ahead and totally concur with everything you just said because that's just this past weekend, myself and a group of moms that have been such a support system to me for the last, 10, 12 years that we've lived here in Santa Barbara. We got together and, within a matter of a couple of months, we pulled together a rally ourselves just so we could feel like we were expressing our concern, right? We needed to do something. And that was something that, and we were able to engage legislators to come and speak at our rally. So we engaged the community, other organizations, and we did that as moms. Just a group of moms that just wanted to get together and do something with that concern and that fear that you mentioned. And even though we know that there's time and there's things that need to happen in order for any of our concerns to actually come to fruition. It just felt good to be doing something together as a group and getting involved and knowing that you're not alone in this process. So thank you for sharing all of those wonderful suggestions because it truly is, it does start with parent to parent support. Um, so we know that our stories matter in advocacy. Do you have any tips? And you mentioned when you were, just when you were in DC last week, how you enjoyed hearing the stories and learning about people and their stories. What kinds of tips would you give on the best way to tell your story?
Okay, some of first of all, don't get angry. Don't be telling an angry story. Um, and don't be pointing fingers at whoever you're speaking to. Um, because we all make different decisions as family members, and you may not agree with a decision that I make, Felisa, and I may not agree with the decision you make, but I will support to the death your ability to make that decision. And that's really important that we support one another as we move forward. And any of us can be a member of the disability community, DISCO, anytime. And so let us also remember that could be me any minute.
Hmm.
We need to tell the truth. We need to make sure that we understand that advocacy is really the highest symbol of citizenship in this country. So
Yes.
when you tell a story, you need to be able to have somebody walk away and remember it. So how are you going to do it? Well, for someone who talks way too much, which is me, if you say, "Tell me your story," the other person who knows me is gonna go yawn, "Oh my god, she's gonna go on forever." But I learned a long time ago that there is a very concise way to tell your story. So, what I have a tendency to this is what I do. See this? This is a manila envelope, and I have a picture of Joseph. No, this is a long time ago because this is the first time I did it. This is a picture of Joseph on one side. This is this is also a Joseph on a newer version of Joseph. There are many pictures of Joseph that you take to a legislator. You take and put on a sign if you're going to a march, if you're going wherever. But you go, but I don't know what I'm going to say. Well, it's very, very simple because on the back, you write the notes. And on the back, I write what I'm going to say. And there are like five very specific things you write down. And I'm not going to read my thing, but it also has an old name, which I don't carry anymore. But you write down, you say your location being a city, because you want to establish yourself as a constituent to a state or a district or wherever you're talking, whomever you're talking to. You want to name the disability, but you want to name the disability in shorthand. So Joseph has Angelman syndrome. If I say that to most legislators, they're gonna go, I have no idea what you just said. So then you wanna say a significant complex intellectual developmental disability, because they hear IDD a lot. You wanna make sure that then you say, what are the services I want? Or I need, or, kind of why you're there to talk about it. We're there to support hands off Medicaid, or my son uses all of his regional center services, which are supported living services, his IHSS, his Social Security, all of this are all services covered by Medicaid that I know because I did my research. So I know these will go away. And if these go away, Joseph will end up on the street, or he is going and homeless, or he goes back to the institution that we just spent 40 years closing. So you have to think about this is kind of your boom, 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 and how, what are the consequences of what you are asking for? So it's your name, your location, the disability, the services you want or need, and the consequences that you're fighting for, the consequences you do not want to see or do see, depending on what it is you're doing. And that's the simplest way to do it. And because a lot of times when you first start doing this, you don't know how long to make the story. It has to be less than 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes. And time yourself in front of the mirror to see how long it takes you, because I say, "Oh, it's only 2 minutes," and it's always 5. Uh, you need it, and the reason you need that, because if you do any advocacy, you're gonna only get 2 minutes in front of a microphone at a hearing office. at a hearing in the legislative building, or you're only going to get that much time in an elevator talking to somebody. You run into Senator Schiff and you're going to go, what do I say? I'm going to say, this is what I am. I'm Pat Hornbecker. Joseph has Angelman syndrome, which is a significant IDD. I live in San Francisco, which is your state, and he receives all his services through Medicaid and Social Security. If you take those away, he's going back to an institution. Boom. I told
Nicely
you.
done, Pat. Yeah, I love that you did a little checklist for us. You made that very, 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 very easy. And you also mentioned you used the word hearing, but I think you were referring to like public testimony, like when we get an opportunity to maybe if you live locally in Sacramento, maybe you have the opportunity to speak in front of legislators about a particular bill or something that you support and you get that opportunity for public testimony. That's why you want to keep it short. And even if it's not for something like that, like you said, you run into your legislator at the grocery store and you want to say, "Hi, you represent my district, and I just wanted you to meet my son." And you get an opportunity to actually put a face with a name, and that can be very, very powerful. I love that. So we are getting to the place where now we can start to think about questions, Q&A. And just really quick before we wrap up, Pat, in summary, how would you say we turn it all into action? Just, if you were to summarize, how would we turn it into action?
Well, you have to keep in touch with the action alerts that the ARC puts out, or whatever group you belong to. Subscribe to the Monday Morning Memo. Go to the ARC US and their action alerts and stay involved with that. So that if you know, even if you don't understand what they are, this is how you're going to build your own repertoire of vocabulary and understanding of what touches your life. So that's the first and easiest from your home you can do, is educating yourself. And if you don't understand it, that's when you go back to your mom group and talk to your moms.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Pat. This has been such a great conversation, and I look forward to answering some questions. But before we move into Q&A, I want to tell everyone a little bit about the classes that are offered through Caring Futures. The Future is Now, Designing a Support Plan for You and Your Adult Family Member, is a 6-week live online class series where caregivers develop a comprehensive future planning guide for the caregiver and their adult family member with a disability, all in a welcoming and small environment. We are excited to announce that we just launched our new self-paced online classes as well. Self-Care Matters, Wellbeing for the Caregiver is a 2-week live online class series where caregivers learn about and practice tips, resources, and strategies to improve or sustain their well-being. Future is Now and Self-Care Matters classes are also offered in Spanish. Visit the Caring Futures website at caringfutures.org and join our mailing list to keep up to date on these offerings and to register for classes and more. Also, if you want to continue this conversation, then I invite you to join the Caring Futures Facebook group. It's a private group only for family caregivers and is a safe space for us to share our triumphs and challenges. A link to the Facebook group will be posted in the chat right now. So we are ready to start our Q&A session. Please type your question in the Q&A feature and we will answer you directly or call on your question to the attention of the group, and our guest will answer you directly. If you would like to use the ASL interpreter to ask your question, please raise your hand and request video access in the Q&A. So let's get started with the questions, Pat. Looks like we have quite a few. Let's see. Go to the right place. Well, we have one. Do we not have any questions? Everyone's quiet on advocacy today. Well,
Oh my.
we have plenty of time. If anyone has any questions, specific questions for Pat today. Looks like we had a couple of people that just wanted to say hi. We thank you all for being here and taking time for this conversation today. Um,
Tina was raising her hand to speak. Tina Carter.
Okay, I don't see.
I just gave her permission to talk, to unmute yourself, Tina.
Okay.
And it looks like Laurel Marinelli. I'm going to go ahead and unmute or ask her to unmute and go ahead and ask a question.
Okay, great.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
hello.
All right, that was just a great talk. Thank you. Um, I have a question. My son is sitting near me now, and I wonder how much I share of all of this advocacy and um, what we have on our minds with him.
Oh, that is such a thoughtful question. Thank you for asking that. Pat, what are your thoughts on that?
I would say you share as much as you think he can accept or understand. I've been often asked, did you bring Joseph with you? Because I always bring a picture. And I say, Joseph would absolutely hate these hearings, sitting there for 8 hours before I speak, or going to a march with way too many people and too much noise.
Yeah.
The issue of advocacy is something that spoken of in my household all the time. So everyone understood, because Joseph has three younger sisters. So my topic of conversation was always, I'm building a house for Joseph, was always my thing ever since he was a little guy, saying, I'm building a home for Joseph. And that was my excuse for being absent when I had to volunteer, or doing my consultations on the phone with other family members. And we talked about IEPs. He was always included in anything where his decisions made a difference. And if it was about him, where do you want to live? Which came up at some point in his life when his father and I disagreed with that. And I wanted him living at home, and his father wanted him living in a group home. That conversation came up, and Joseph and I shared that conversation with his father, and his father is no longer with us. So those are the way, I mean, he was involved. I mean, but that was as much as that would be good. His sisters, on the other hand, understood advocacy and the laws that I dealt with and what I was studying, and they also took in as much as they did or did not choose to.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. That's been my experience with my daughter as well. There are certain situations where she absolutely wants to be in charge of the of things, like for example, what she wants to eat, whether she wants to go or not go. But when it comes to things that feel stressful or overwhelming to her, she will say, I want you to handle that for me, Mom. I want you to do that for me. So I think that's the answer right there, as much or as little as he wants to be involved. But you knowing the things that he will need in the long run, in the long term, have to decide, how involved you want to get with advocacy. And yeah, and that's a wonderful question. Thank you so much for that. Looks like we have a few more too. So I'm going to start at the top of the list here. Do we have another person waiting to ask their question live, Julia? I think you had
Yep.
said that
You
there
have,
was.
there's Marie Zimmer.
Okay.
So we could go ahead and ask to unmute. Maria, if you want to go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Hi, yes, I'm from Los Angeles, Eagle Rock, and I'm not a parent. I'm a self-advocate. Um,
Oh,
and I just wanted to say thank you for offering the example of the bullet points because I tend to be very long-winded. But my mom and dad did teach me how to self-advocate very, very young. I was in my first IEP meeting at second grade and I continued going all throughout high school. So that is where I found my voice, and I had to advocate for some big things in high school as well.
that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Marie. That's great. Really good stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go. Barbie's got a question here. Do you think the power of the friends that you made in your journey is important?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I'm sorry. Who doesn't need friends?
Yeah,
Uh,
right?
I started my first parent support group when Joseph was in an infant program, and I still have those moms. And one of those moms ended up becoming an executive director of a family resource center, and another mom ended up running another nonprofit. We fed each other, and if I needed anything at this moment in time, I know I could call them. Um, and they would be here in a heartbeat. But no, we who has too many friends?
Right. Yeah. No,
And even the friends
they're
that are
vital.
not associated with the disco are friends that you need to educate and share your story with. And don't be afraid or ashamed to tell your story, because we all have difficult times with typical kids and non-typical kids, and being a single parent for 30 years, or having a husband for 30 years. All of that's tough.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Or they're vital. Friends are vital. They help get us through it. Thank you for that question, Barbie. We have another question here. Thank you for sharing today. What can we do online to support our families? Is there a place to start with our personal stories and where to send those? That is a great question. And right now, there are many little templates that you can tell your story virtually and send it directly to the Arc of California, the Arc of the United States, and many other disability organizations as well. Um, any specifics that you would share, Pat?
No, I would have said that same answer. I think rehearsing your story and knowing when and where to present it and looking for those opportunities, because if you only have 2 minutes, people are going to actually listen to you. And they're going to go, I just learned something wonderful about the woman standing behind me at the Safeway today. So it is pretty cool. So have your story, write it down, share it to people, share it to the ArcUS, to the Arc of California, and then we can share it. If you have pictures that go along with it, that's always awesome, because they like that. There's also a link on the Arc of the US and the Arc of California to make videos, and short. We're not talking about making a Oscar-winning movie. We are talking about a 30-second video that says, hey, this is me and Joe, and this is what we're doing. Please don't. I mean, it was amazing when we were in DC how many people brought videos of their son or daughter, and one self-advocate brought his video, but it was 3 minutes long. So he had to email it to them because we didn't have time. So keep it to the short ones. 30-second
Yeah.
video, 2-minute elevator speech.
And to answer your question more specifically, you say, is there a place to start with our personal stories and where to send those? Start with your, like Pat suggested earlier too, start with your other families. Get to know people by telling your story. And then also, yeah, as far as where to send them, you can send them to any of the disability. Right now, there are many disability community advocate organizations that are asking for stories in an effort to help, stop any kind of cuts to Medicaid. So that would be a great place to send them
And
to.
there's a link that Julia just put in the chat that you can
Excellent.
send it. And we will also, the Arc of California, will send it on to your legislators. So if you have a video that we want to send to your legislator, we are looking to reach out, especially to legislators who are not voting for they're voting for Medicaid cuts, because I think they need more education. They need to hear your story. They don't have a family member. And so maybe we need to share it with them. And that would be important if we knew that you happen to be from a district of a legislator who is voting for the cuts. It would be really wise for us to educate them with your story in that district.
Yes, very important. Carol asked, how do you maintain optimism in these tough times that you can make a difference?
Remember those friends we talked about?
Yes, yes, I do.
I think that's friends. I mean, I've called police more than a few times, and me. It's a matter of reaching out and knowing that I'm going to be pulling my hair out because can you believe what's happening now? These are disquieting times for all of us, but we're in the same boat, and that's what we need to do is hold on together so the boat doesn't sink. And I don't think it will because 1 in 4 of us are touched by disability in some way, shape, or form. And that's what we need to remember and share and keep telling our stories. So, reach out to use your social media well. I don't post a lot of pictures of, although I did post a picture this last weekend of my 4-year-old granddaughter who had her 4th birthday. It was very cute. But most of the time I'm posting informational stuff about, where you can get more information on the latest things that are happening or how you can react to what is happening. And that's what I do with my social media. I don't, I do Blue Sky, I do uh, Instagram and Facebook, but it's just, I don't use it a lot for my personal life. I use it to be able to help support my family, friends that are looking for resources and answers.
Yeah, yeah, that's important. Leslie asks, I'm curious, when you felt your advocacy was most effective? In the past, it seems to be as if any story advocacy is not really heard by legislators. Responses to letters seem to be ineffective.
I think the letters, because they're the mass, a lot of times they're email letters that are mass produced. Recently, I've noticed they want handwritten letters because they want to dump them on somebody's desk with all this handwriting, which is time consuming and a lot of people don't do it. The stories do make a difference. I know that just from speaking to all of the legislators themselves. When I was in Washington, D.C., I met with a guy in Congressman Huffman in San Rafael, and he'd never met with any of our advocates before, ever. And it turns out that he has a kid with autism, and he was very much aware of our information and our troubles, and was very much for it, and was thrilled to hear our stories. And he was grateful that we had people from his area there because he felt ignored because nobody had been there before, and he was a parent. So you never know. You really don't know. As I said, 1 in 4 of us are touched by disability. You do not know how many people in Congress or the state legislature are family members themselves.
Yeah, and I like to I mean, all of that, it is hard. I mean, both of those last two questions, it is hard to stay positive and motivated and to know whether you're making a difference. But the way I gauge that is if it's important to me and I feel like it's important for my daughter, then it's important to tell my story and it's important to share that. Because if I don't share it and I don't do anything to advocate, then it's likely that it's in fact it's for sure that it's not going to be heard, right? So we just
Right.
have to keep trying. And it's hard to stay motivated when you don't feel the immediate effect of change for whatever it is you're advocating for. But we also know in this life that change is slow, but it does happen. Change is slow sometimes, but it does happen. Thank you for that, Pat. Okay, so Deborah asks, perhaps off topic, has there been any system established to vet agencies who employ staff for in-home staffing? I understand the regional center and IHSS have lists of companies they contract. However, I feel a group of parents on an oversight committee would be a very beneficial thing. Any groups discussing something like that?
Hmm. Well, each regional center does have a board of directors. and they are responsible for oversight of what the regional center does. So, I would find it intriguing to be a member of a board of directors of a regional center, because I think that level of oversight is available to you there. They are public nonprofit organizations. And they do, like for IHSS, they do a lot of investigating of anybody who has to be, who's going to become a worker. I do pretty intense interviews for any of my son's workers. The Arc of San Francisco does them as well. So once they've gone through being vendorized through the Arc of San Francisco or through IHSS, they got to go through me. And so that's another way of the way I filter and understand staffing. I don't think it's a systemic response that you're looking for. Systemically, I would think getting involved with boards of directors of a regional center, or the local service provider who might be providing the staff that you're looking for. That's what I would do.
Thank you, Pat. Barbie asked another question. She says, please, can you tell me your thoughts on the power of good resources?
The power of good resource. I think that's all
It kind of
there.
speaks for itself, I think, right? I mean, like, if you've got good resources, you've got some
A
power.
good resource is a good resource. Although, if you've done enough research, then you also recognize what's a bad resource.
Mhm.
So, understanding what comes across the internet or your social media is not always the truth. So you need to also, hey, it was on the internet. It's not always a good response to saying they said so. So you validate. You check your sources. You check what's going on. Check timelines. Is the sky really falling today, or is it going to take 6 months? I was much more reassured after the two conventions I went to understand the state timelines and the national timelines, and how things are going to go forward, step by step by step, so that we're not walking off a cliff today. But it gives us time to create the stories and tell the stories and reach out to all the people we're supposed to. But I mean, always check your resources. I mean, just like you would vet anyone who you were employing to work with your son or daughter, you would make sure you checked their references. I think it's kind of the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and then once you know that you've got good resources, share those resources with others. And that carries a lot of weight once you've done that vetting process like you talked about. But yeah, good resources can't be underestimated. I
Wonderful.
mean, they definitely are a powerful thing to have for sure. So Megan asks, is it helpful to send your story to a legislator who is not in your district or state?
Less effective, because they'll circular file it. They're not gonna go, this brings up the question, do you want to speak to the legislator or the aide? It's very, very different, but you need to understand that if you're a legislator, I'm Scott Wiener, I'm Senator Wiener, somebody comes up to me to tell their story, I'm going to freeze in my place, listening to their story, knowing they're from San Francisco. And of course, I probably have an entourage of people, and I'm going to go get her name and number and find out where she is and what the heck is she talking about, so that they can do the research. The aide that they're talking to is who you really want to talk to. When we were in Washington, D.C., we spoke to a lot of aides. We did meet with a lot of legislators along the way. We did speak to some congressmen and some senators, but we did speak to legislative aides. And that's important because they are the ones that educate the legislator about the votes they need to give. So if you want Valdeo to vote against Medicaid cuts, then you need to make sure that legislative aide hears your story and understands what's going to happen in your district and how many people in your district might be affected. You don't need to know all the stats. If you want to know all the stats, you can reach out to the ARC California. I'll probably give it to you. But you need to know your story and share it with the aide, because the legislative aide is the one that carries the ticket to give to the legislator, whether it's an assemblyman or a congressman, to vote the way we want them to vote in favor of our community.
Thank you, Pat. We had one person join a little bit late, and this will be our last question for today. But real quick, just wanted like a quick overview of advocacy tips. So, like,
Oh.
if you were to summarize your conversation again, what would you say? I say you share how to tell your story again, because that to me was the most powerful part of our conversation. You know.
I do say that if you need to tell your story, but you need to be short. 2 minutes, say your name, where are you from, what is the disability you're speaking about, and give it a shorthand. I don't need a medical diagnosis with 3 pages. The services you want or need or in fear of losing, and the consequences that are going to happen if they are removed. Whether you're talking about education, Medicaid, Social Security, housing, any of those above, that story should be a 2-minute spiel that you can put on the back of your manila folder with a picture on one side, the story on the other, so you can read it in the elevator as you go up the stairs.
I just love that. I think that is a fantastic tip. I'm going to use that from now on. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining us today. Pat, thank you for all of your expertise and knowledge on advocacy. And I'm wishing us all well as we pursue what's to come. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time.